How do you confess something that you think will set you free, only to find out it handed someone else the key? I stood up at our anniversary dinner with a glass in my hand and said the truest thing I had said in months. I thought the marriage was already broken and that he would thank me eventually. But I did not understand what a quiet man looks like when he stops waiting and starts deciding. My name is Soraya Fell, and I am 33 years old, and I plan events for a living, which means I have spent the better part of a decade designing moments meant to matter. Anniversary dinners, corporate retreats, milestone celebrations where everything is carefully arranged so that people feel something real. I understand pacing and atmosphere and the precise placement of a speech within an evening, and I know when to introduce a reveal and when to let a room sit with silence. The problem, which is not a small one, is that I applied these particular skills to the wrong room on the wrong evening at the wrong table. I also have a husband named Marcus, who is 36 and teaches history at a secondary school and coaches the debate team on Thursday afternoons, who is patient in the way that only people who spend their days with teenagers can genuinely afford to be, and who wrote me a card for our anniversary that I left on the kitchen counter for 2 days before I could bring myself to read it properly. The evening before the anniversary dinner, I was not at the work event I told him I was at. I was at the rooftop bar on the event floor of our own building, sitting at a corner table near the glass railing with a man named Rennick, who is a personal trainer from the gym 1 block from my office, and who tells me things that feel, in the moment, like being genuinely understood. He had ordered 2 drinks before I arrived. The city below was going orange in the early evening light, and the tables around us were filling with people who had no connection to either of our lives. We talked for 90 minutes about things I described to myself as real and necessary, and at one point he reached across the table and adjusted the collar of my jacket, and I let him. And behind us 3 strangers were looking at the view with no interest in us at all. I took the elevator down alone at 9:20, and as the display counted down through the floors, I saw through the glass panel of event floor 2. A dining room being dressed for the following evening, white tablecloths being laid out, candle holders being arranged in careful rows. The anniversary restaurant was 1 floor below the rooftop bar where I had just spent 90 minutes with another man. I stood in the elevator for those last 2 floors and told myself this was a coincidence and not a metaphor. And I kept moving. Marcus was awake when I got home, sitting on the edge of the bed with a book open on his knee. He asked how the logistics meeting went, and I said it had run over but was fine, and he said Lily was asleep and that he had left my card on the counter. His voice had a particular warmth, I found, in that specific moment, inconvenient rather than comforting. I went to the ensuite to wash my face. When I came out, he was standing in the bathroom doorway, not blocking, just present. He said he had noticed over the last few weeks that I seemed somewhere else, and he asked, gently, what was going on with me. His tone was curious rather than accusatory. He mentioned that my last 3 work evenings had all run past 9, and asked whether the events team was under pressure or whether something else was weighing on me. He said the card on the counter was a second draft, because the first version had come out wrong, and the second one said what he actually meant. He asked if I wanted to talk before tomorrow. The card had a folded corner from being rewritten, a small and particular detail I had not paid close attention to until he named it. I told him he was making the evening into something it did not need to be, and that his timing felt like an audit rather than a conversation, and that I just needed sleep. He said he was not auditing me. He was asking. I said goodnight and got into bed. He went to the living room for a while, and when he came back, he sat on the edge of the bed and said quietly that he did not want tomorrow to be a performance. He said he wanted the night to be real, and that if there was something she needed to say to him, he would rather hear it at home than feel it in a room full of people. He said if she needed more time, they could reschedule the dinner entirely. I told him everything was fine, that he was imagining things. He said okay and turned off the light. In the morning, I went to the kitchen for coffee and picked up the card he had written. He had written that he did not know how to make me stay if I had already decided to go, but that he was still here and still choosing this, and that he hoped I was too. I put the card down. My phone showed a message from Rennick. I read it and put the phone face down on the counter, and I stood there for a moment with the card on one side and the phone on the other, equidistant on the counter surface. Then I picked up the phone, typed 3 words back, and put the card in my bag to take to dinner that evening. The drive from our building to the anniversary restaurant the following evening would take 11 minutes. I had driven it before. I knew the route and the parking. I had booked the private dining room myself 2 months earlier because I was good at that, and because at the time I still believed the evening would be what I planned it to be. The morning of the anniversary, I went to the office and coordinated the final details for a corporate retreat I was running the following week. The Harrington Conference, a hospitality industry event I had been building for 3 months. The structure of my professional life is not subtle in its irony. I arrange meaningful moments for other people and then go home and dismantle them. My colleague Camille brought me coffee and asked if I was nervous about that evening. I said I thought I was finally going to be honest with Marcus. She said that was the bravest thing a person could do. A colleague nearby caught the word brave and asked what was happening. I said it was nothing. Camille said it was actually really something, and smiled in a way that confirmed she had already decided I was right. At 11:45, Camille posted an Instagram story on a black background with white text, "Courage is when you tell the truth at the table where everything matters." She tagged me. 3 mutual contacts reacted, including one who knew Marcus through a shared professional circle. I liked the post without reading carefully about who would see it. I told myself social media was its own category, separate from whatever was happening at home. I arrived home at 5:10 to find Marcus already dressed and sitting at the Home Office desk. When I came upstairs, he minimized the laptop screen. A simple motion, the same as closing a book mid-chapter. I asked how his afternoon had been, and he said he had gone to a meeting in Hammersmith about a professional development program. His voice was the same as usual, but the air around him was different, more contained, slightly more deliberate in the way he turned to look at me. I narrated this to myself as him being in teacher mode, which was something I had always found slightly remote. On the bedroom dresser was the card I had brought from my bag. I read it again, and this time a different line arrived with more weight. He had written the words already decided to go in past tense, not decide, already decided. The verb placement meant he had been thinking about this before I came to him. I put the card back face down and went to get dressed. In the parking bay at 6:45, as we walked down together for the first time in weeks, Marcus paused beside the car. He looked across to a bay 2 rows over where a specific car had been parking regularly for months. The same model, the same gym permit sticker in the lower corner of the windscreen. The car was not there that evening, but the oil trace in the space was visible under the fluorescent strip lighting. He stood and looked at it for 3 deliberate seconds, then opened the car door without comment. I saw him look but did not see what he was looking at. In the car on the way to the restaurant, he said there was something he had been putting off asking. He said that over the last 5 weeks, on evenings she had described as work events, her building access card had logged her entering the rooftop bar via the internal elevator, not the street entrance, on multiple occasions, and that the parking permit account showed the corresponding dates. His question was direct. He asked her to account for the previous evening specifically, because the shared events calendar showed the logistics meeting ending at 7:30, and the building log showed her entering the rooftop bar level at 7:22. He said he did not want to ruin the evening, but that he needed to know. I told him he was tracking me, that this was controlling behavior, that I was a grown adult with a professional life, and I did not owe him a movement report. He said he was not tracking her. The parking permit account was in his name and he had access to the building log as a matter of routine. He said he was asking a question. I said the question felt like an accusation. He did not argue. He drove. At a red light, he said one more thing. If tonight was going to be a real celebration, he needed to know they were celebrating something real. He said if she had something to tell him, he would rather hear it in the car than in a room. His offer was plain. He would pull over right now if she wanted to talk. I said I did not want to arrive upset. He said okay. The light changed. When we pulled up at the restaurant and I got out of the car, a crumpled receipt fell from my coat pocket onto the curb. It had been in there since 2 weeks ago. From the restaurant district on the same side of the city as the rooftop bar, time-stamped at 5 to 9 in the evening. Marcus saw it fall. He picked it up, turned it over, read the venue name printed at the top. He folded it carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. I did not see him do this. I was already walking toward the entrance, checking my bag for the folded piece of paper with the speech I had been writing for 3 days. Inside the foyer, the host walked us toward the private dining room. The table was set for 12. The candles were already lit. Uncle Desmond was seated near the window, and Petra was beside him, and the room had the warm, expectant quality of a gathering that did not yet know what it was waiting for. The dinner was warm and ordinary in the way that the hour before something permanent always is. Petra asked Lily about school, and Lily gave a detailed report about a girl in her class who could do a cartwheel with her eyes closed. Dominic and Marcus talked about cricket. Camille told a long story about a work retreat that had gone completely wrong because the venue had double-booked a children's birthday party in the adjacent room. I sat at the table present, but slightly elsewhere, timing myself, waiting for the moment between the main course and dessert when I had planned to stand up. I had rehearsed the speech. I knew the transitions. I had one glass of wine and then another and told myself the second one was just to settle my nerves. When the plates were cleared and the gap before dessert opened up, I stood up. I raised my glass. I began the way a conventional anniversary toast begins. Gratitude, memories, the texture of a shared life, the way he laughs at his own jokes before the punchline. Camille started to smile. Then I pivoted. I said that the truest thing I could offer on this anniversary was honesty, and that I had been carrying something for months that had kept me from being fully present in this marriage. I said I had found a connection that made me feel alive in a way I had not felt in a long time. The room went quiet in the particular way that rooms go quiet when something has been said that cannot be unsaid. The candle in front of Uncle Desmond had a long, unbroken flame. I said I was telling Marcus this here, with the people who loved us both present, because I believed he deserved to hear the truth from me directly and not through a later, quieter conversation. No one spoke. Camille's hand found my arm. Desmond set his wineglass down on the tablecloth without a sound. At the far end of the table, someone exhaled, and the candle nearest the window bent slightly in the air movement. Marcus was very still. He looked at me with the expression of a person reading a document they already suspected was coming and had hoped they were wrong about. Then he folded his napkin and placed it on the table and said he needed a moment, and he stood and walked out of the room. His pace was even. He did not hurry. I looked around the table for the response I had scripted for in my head. Camille nodded. Petra was looking at the window. Desmond was looking at the tablecloth. I said to the room that I had not expected this to be easy, that sometimes love required courage from the person delivering it. No one raised a glass. The dessert arrived and nobody started eating. After 15 minutes, I followed Marcus to the foyer. He was sitting in the coat alcove on a small velvet bench between 2 rows of hanging winter coats, and he was calm in a way that was more unsettling than anger would have been. He asked, without raising his voice, why she had chosen this room, this table, and this timing for what she had just said. His question was specific. He asked whether she had considered that Desmond, a retired magistrate who had known his family for 30 years, was in that room, that his mother was at that table, that Lily was in the adjacent children's area and had appeared in the dining room doorway at the wrong moment before a waiter had gently redirected her. He said he had gone back later and found Lily's coat still on her chair where no one had remembered to collect it. He asked what outcome she had been imagining when she chose this particular setting. I still had my wine glass in my hand, having carried it from the table without thinking, and the remaining wine had sloshed slightly, leaving a faint pale ring across my fingers. He said one thing clearly. He would not have this conversation in this building, tonight, in these circumstances. He gestured lightly toward the glass. He said he would come home after speaking with Dominic, and he expected them to have a real conversation tomorrow at home, without an audience. He said he was not walking out. He was stepping back, and there was a difference. He said if she had something she needed him to understand, he was still willing to listen, but not here, and not now. I said he was being dramatic, that I had done what I should have done months ago, and that his response proved everything she had already known about him. He said he understood that was how she saw it. He said they would talk tomorrow. When I went back to the table, Dominic was no longer in his seat. He had gone to the foyer. Desmond looked at me once, a long, measured look that did not invite conversation, and then turned to speak to Petra in a voice too low to hear. Camille squeezed my hand, and I narrated this as the support I had needed. I did not read the actual temperature of the table. As people began collecting coats, my phone showed a notification. Someone had posted a photo from just before the toast and tagged me. The candle flame, the glasses raised, Marcus's hands flat on the table. I looked good in the frame. I shared it to my close friends list without reading the caption. In the top corner of the image, almost at the edge of the frame, Uncle Desmond's expression was unmistakably not festive. But I did not notice this until much later. I could not find my coat. A waiter said a gentleman had already taken it to the car. Outside, Dominic was standing beside Marcus's car, holding both coats. He handed me mine without speaking. Marcus was already in the passenger seat, facing forward, the car running. Petra was in the kitchen at 7:30 the following morning, making porridge for Lily. Marcus was upstairs. She did not look at me when she spoke. She said, to the spoon, to the pot, to the general direction of the counter, that he had never embarrassed me. Not once. Then she went back to the porridge. I said it was complicated. She did not respond. Lily came in asking about cartoons, and I said yes, and she went to the living room sofa with her blanket. Before I left for work, Marcus found me in the hallway. He was composed and exact in the way he had been since the previous evening. Not cold, just precise. He said he wanted to talk about Lily's routine. He said this was not a threat. It was a question. Had she discussed at any point how Lily would be managed during or after what she said at the table, given that Lily had been in the adjacent children's area and had come to the dining room doorway at the wrong moment before a waiter redirected her? He said he had gone back to the restaurant at 10:15 to retrieve Lily's coat, which was still on her chair because no one had remembered to bring it when they left. He said he wanted to be clear about one thing. Lily's schedule would not change. He said this once without repetition. He said he would not discuss the marriage until after the weekend. His offer was straightforward. If she was serious about working on things, he was willing to hear a concrete plan from her. But he was not willing to begin from a position where his emotional distance over the past year was understood as the cause of what happened. He said the card was still on the counter if she wanted to read what he had actually written to her. I said calling his distance a myth was exactly his way of rewriting the history of the past year. He said he had not rewritten anything. He went upstairs and I heard the study door close. At the office, I went into the glass-walled meeting room and told 3 colleagues a careful version of the anniversary. I said I had been honest with Marcus about a difficult period in the marriage, that he had left the table, and that I was managing the fallout from his reaction. I did not name the affair. I described it as a connection that had meant something to me. Camille confirmed that I had been brave. A colleague named Rena, who coordinated events alongside me, asked whether Marcus had a support network around him right now. The question was not hostile, but it was not the response I had prepared for, and it stayed with me through the afternoon. I thought about Rena's question for the rest of the afternoon, not because it upset me, but because I could not answer it cleanly. And questions I cannot answer cleanly tend to stay in my head longer than the ones I can. On Saturday afternoon, I drove to the sports centre to collect Lily from gymnastics and found Marcus already there, leaning against the car, talking to another parent in the easy way he had with people he did not know well. He had been managing the Saturday pickup since the anniversary without discussion. His phone was fully charged and in his hand, which it now always was. He signed Lily's activity sheet, said something to the parent that made them laugh, and then spotted me in the car park and gave a measured nod. Clean and professional, the kind that communicated only acknowledgement. Lily ran to him first. I told myself he was performing the good parent for an audience of one. That evening, I brought him a cup of tea made the way he took it, no sugar, a small amount of milk, and sat down across from him in the living room, in what I hoped read as a composed, adult posture. I said I understood that the dinner had been a difficult way to receive difficult news, and I took responsibility for the delivery, if not for the substance of what I had said. I told him I was willing to go to counselling, to step back from all outside contact, to be fully present in the marriage going forward. But I needed him to acknowledge that his emotional withdrawal over the course of the past year had created the conditions for what happened. I said all of this carefully and believed I sounded reasonable. He said he heard me. He said he would think about it. He did not accept the condition about the withdrawal. I pressed slightly. He became quieter. Then he said one sentence, that he was not splitting the reason for this. And he picked up his book. I asked what that meant. He said I knew what it meant. He did not say anything else. I went upstairs. In the shared bathroom cabinet, his side had been organised. His toiletries were in a clear Ziploc bag, separate from the shelf where they had always been mixed together with mine. The bag was not packed with any drama. It was simply sorted and contained. He was watching a documentary downstairs and I could hear the low audio through the floor. I put the bag back exactly where I found it and told myself he was being deliberately petty. My phone showed a new comment on the anniversary photo I had posted. A friend of Dominic's who had been at the dinner had written that they hoped everyone was okay. It had 14 likes, and I did not recognise most of the profiles that had liked it. On Monday morning, I went to the gym where Rennick worked and stood on the pavement outside the entrance for 12 full minutes, watching the glass door, waiting for a gap in the incoming traffic of early morning members. He sent a text that said, "This was not a good time." I walked home through streets that were already busy with people going in the direction they had decided to go. I checked the parking permit management site that evening, out of habit or nervousness, the kind of thing you do when you want to feel in control of something, and the account showed 2 new access log views that morning from his login. Marcus was at the study desk when I came back, transferring teaching materials from the shared home office drawer into a canvas bag, the kind with a wide flat bottom that teachers carry when they have too many things to fit in a briefcase. He added a USB drive labelled only with a date, a charger cable, and a small bound notebook with a green cover. He zipped the bag closed and placed it by the study door without explanation. I asked if he was going somewhere, and he said he was just organising. The bag had been in the shared drawer for 2 years, and the fact that he had chosen to move its contents into something he could carry independently was, I told myself, just about convenience. The shared laptop was open on the desk, and the screen showed an email confirming the cancellation of the joint travel insurance policy, the one we had renewed together every year for 6 years, with the same provider, on the same date. The cancellation was effective that morning. He closed the laptop screen and sat back in the study chair. He said he had one final question, and I could answer however I wanted. He asked what I actually wanted to happen next, not as a performance, not as a managed statement designed for an audience, but in practical terms. What did I want for me, for Lily, for the shape of the coming year? His question had a specific edge. He said he had become aware, through a contact, of a message I had sent to Camille 3 weeks before the anniversary dinner, in which I had described the marriage as already finished. He asked when exactly I had decided that, and whether the confession at the anniversary table had been an act of honesty or a way to end the marriage on terms I controlled. He indicated the birthday card Lily had made for him, pinned to the study corkboard in crayon and cut paper, briefly and without drama, just as a reference to what they were actually discussing in real terms. I told him he was doing exactly what I had described in my message to Petra, using selective interpretation to position me as the villain of a story he was quietly writing. I said I was done with conversations that felt like depositions where the verdict was already decided. He said he was not deposing me, he was asking. I said the conversation was over. He said he knew. He picked up the canvas bag, told me he would be back by 6 for Lily's dinner, and left through the front door. It did not slam. I sat at the kitchen table with my phone and called Camille, who listened while I composed a message to Petra and Dominic. I read it back twice and she said it sounded right. I explained in the message that Marcus had been monitoring my movements and interpreting a professional relationship as something it was not, and that he was now using silence and logistical control as a form of punishment. I said the marriage had been functionally over before the anniversary dinner, and I had been the only one honest enough to name it. I meant to attach a screenshot of an old work calendar, evidence that one of the evenings Marcus had flagged was a documented professional event. I pressed send before looking at the attachment properly. The attachment was a screenshot of a message thread with Rennick, time-stamped the evening before the anniversary dinner, with the rooftop bar named in the thread and the time showing 7:38, and Rennick's message saying he was looking forward to that night. I had sent this to Marcus's brother, his mother, and a retired magistrate. 15 minutes later, Dominic called. He said almost nothing. He said I should know that Uncle Desmond would be attending the Harrington conference the following weekend, the industry retreat I was coordinating. He said I would see him there. He said goodnight and ended the call. Marcus came home at 5:58 as he had said. He helped Lily with homework at the kitchen table. He made dinner. He said goodnight to me in the hallway before I went upstairs. The canvas bag was by the study door. His phone was charging on the study desk rather than the bedroom, where it had been for several days now. I walked past the study and saw the kitchen wall calendar had a date circled in blue. Next Saturday, with the word Harrington written beneath it in small, careful letters. My own retreat schedule, printed and left on the counter 3 weeks earlier, had the same date. I was the coordinator. I had confirmed Uncle Desmond as keynote 3 months ago. I stood in the hallway looking between the circled date and my name on the schedule and did not move for longer than I should have. The second morning of the Harrington conference, I was at the welcome desk in the hotel atrium at 10:20, checking in late arrivals with a lanyard and a clipboard. I had built this event. Desmond was across the atrium with 2 delegates. He saw me and gave a nod that communicated nothing warm. 8 colleagues were within 10 feet. A man in a plain suit approached and asked for me by full name. I confirmed it the way I always do at professional events. He placed a sealed envelope and a stapled document set on the desk, stated his role, and named the filing, a petition to modify marital finances and assets with temporary protective measures already registered, and an attached draft custody arrangement for Lily with a 14-day response window. He left a formal solicitor's letter beside my clipboard and stepped back. In the hotel corridor, Camille found me 2 minutes later. The petition named the parking receipt retrieved from the restaurant curb, dated, time-stamped venue matched to Rennick's known location. It named the building access card log, showing my internal elevator entry to the rooftop bar at 7:38 the evening before the anniversary. It named the dashcam footage of Rennick's vehicle in the building bay across a dated series. And it named the message thread screenshot, the one I had attached by mistake and sent to Petra, Dominic, and Uncle Desmond, and which Dominic had forwarded to the solicitor. I had provided the central piece of evidence myself, with my own thumb. in my own message. Camille looked up the solicitor's firm on her phone and said it was a family law practice, as a statement rather than a question. I said Marcus was overreacting. She put her phone away and said she should get back to the morning session. She walked away at normal pace and did not look back. I had believed that standing up at that table and speaking first was the most powerful thing I could do. What I had not counted on was a man who had spent his career teaching students to construct arguments from primary sources. He had picked a receipt off a curb in silence. He had logged a building access card he already had routine access to. He had waited. The noise had been entirely on my side. The weight had been entirely on his. Closure snapshot. Lily's gymnastics schedule is managed through Marcus's phone now. The joint streaming account moved to his profile the week after the hotel service. The anniversary photo is still on my Instagram because I cannot bring myself to delete it, and Desmond's comment has 27 likes. I spent 2 weeks at my parents' house with one bag. Rennick replied to my last message with a single word, and I did not send another. Camille did not post about me for 11 days. The formal solicitor response arrived on a Thursday, 4 pages, every line specific, and I had no answer for any of it that I had not already put into writing myself. This is where the story ends, not with the speech I wrote and practiced, but with the receipt he picked up quietly and carried in his pocket all the way to the filing.